last time I talked with you, I was telling you something about our ship. It was built in 1932 and commissioned and was the ship of state for the president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And he traveled on the ship quite a bit, went to different nations. And then when the war broke out, why, they converted the Indianapolis to a heavy cruiser battleship and put more armament on it. And somebody asked me, they said, where was Indianapolis at Pearl Harbor? Why wasn't it hit? Well, I wasn't aboard at that time, but I talked to one of the shipmates that was, and he said that one morning they got up and they still had some men out on Liberty, and he said a detachment of Marines came aboard, and they got underway immediately, headed for Johnston Island. I don't know, maybe 500 miles from Hawaii, or maybe 250, I don't know for sure. But they went to and delivered the Marines, and whenever they got started back, there was a message saying, do not return to Hawaii, we're under attack. The Japanese were attacking. Well, nobody believed it, he said. And he said, then the captain told us to throw anything flammable like paint and all overboard. And he said, whenever he saw in the elevator bringing up the wooden furniture of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the president, and threw it overboard, well, he believed that the Japanese were attacking Pearl Harbor. But anyway, we continued at Okinawa when I was having breakfast that morning, and they said, all men man your battle stations. I just dropped my tray, ran up the ladder, ran forward on the main deck, and just as I got midships, I saw a shadow, I heard a motor, and I looked up kind of, and there was a Japanese airplane, looked like headed right for me. Well, it didn't hit me, it went a little over and to the port side and hit the ship. And I understand there's 2 bombs that it carried. One went plumb through 9 decks of steel. It was a delayed action bomb, went through the mess hall where we were seated and through one of the tables, and then went off and blew that 2 propellers off that ship and blew it up high enough to where whenever it came down, now it had an 18-foot difference from the main deck to the water line. When it came down, the water swept over the stern of it. And it threw me up in the air, and I hit on the stomach on the deck, and we carried 2 observation planes on catapults. And I was just nearly right under one of the catapults, and I looked over, and there was the airplane on the port side had fallen off and was being held by a big rope or lanyard, and there was a kid that had been servicing the airplanes. He fell from 30 feet up and hit the deck and bounced, and I turned around 3 times and headed up to my battle station, which was a rising forward lookout. And so we could still have power with 2 propellers on the starboard side. And we went directly into what they call Suicide Harbor. Every time a ship got hit, they'd drag it into this harbor. And even Okinawa hadn't even been invaded. And there was live enemy all around these ships. And they would swim out and climb up the anchor chains, and then the kamikazes would come in night and day, and we were told at night not to fire anything but 5-inch guns, because if you fired the 40 millimeter and the 20 millimeter, they had tracer bullets, and those airplane pilots would come in on that tracer bullet angle. So we just fired our 5-inch guns. And one night I was in the compartment, fixing to get a little rest, and about that time, over the loudspeaker came, all men manning at the battle stations. There is a JAPA board. Remain in your compartments. There is a JAPA board. And I'll tell you more about it later.